guys, it's Lizzie. So if you are brand new to my channel, I have bipolar disorder. And so when I speak about depression, I'm speaking of depression episodes within bipolar disorder. But what I found is that people with unipolar depression can also extremely relate to these videos.
I can see you're scared of your emotions. I can see you're hoping you're not hopeless. So why can't you show me? Why can't you show me?
So I made another video about a year ago, signs that you have depression, and it's helped a lot of people understand that they are in depression just because the way depression manifests is not typically what you think that it is. So this video is kind of the inverse of that. It's how to see depression from the outside. So how to see depression in a friend or a family member, things that are obvious on the outside. When I was first diagnosed with a major depression episode in 2015, a lot of my friends and family didn't even believe that I could be in depression because it seemed like I was still happy on the outside. But now that my family, all my roommates and friends know that I have bipolar disorder, they do notice slight differences when I am in depression. But I just think this video will be really helpful for everyone to be able to recognize mental illness in other people.
Who are you when it's 3 a.m. and you're all alone and LA doesn't feel like home?
So the first thing, my boyfriend actually pointed this out to me a couple weeks ago, but your pupils become really tiny in depression. In manic episodes, I knew that my pupils get huge and I always pay attention to that. But he said that they were so small he could barely even see my pupils. So if you're really close to someone and feel comfortable staring into their eyes, you might be able to tell by pupil size if they have bipolar which episode they're in.
Who are you in the dark?
Number 2 is just if they complain about being really physically sick. Like they feel really fatigued, exhausted, they feel like they need to lay down in bed. Also, they might even feel feverish. When I get depression, I get chills and then sometimes I'll feel like I have a fever. But a lot of times I will just have like complete chills when I'm in depression. And so it'll look like they're physically sick because they might just be laying in bed all day. This past Sunday, I was in depression and I literally didn't get out of my bed until like 4 p.m. I just stayed in my bed, under my covers. It literally looks like you're sick. If you ask someone what's wrong with them, they might explain that they just feel really like exhausted, as if they have mono. They might even complain about having a headache. But in depression, for someone with bipolar especially, changes in body temperature is extremely common. So when I'm manic, my body temperature is up a few degrees. When I'm in depression, it's down a few degrees.
Lost a little weight because I wasn't eating all the songs that I can't listen to.
Number 3, losing weight or gaining weight. For me, I always lose weight. I just stop eating, lose my appetite. In the past few days, several of my friends have commented that they can tell that I've lost weight. And that happened back in 2016 when I was in a really bad depression episode as well. You lose weight in a pretty short period of time just because you're barely eating and the people around you will notice, like it's visibly obvious. For me, I completely lose my appetite, so it feels as though I don't need to eat. And sometimes I even feel nauseous or really full if I try to eat. But then the main reason is just because you feel so completely exhausted. Everything feels like it takes so much energy to do. When I'm in severe depression, it just feels like I don't have the capability to go make food. It's impossible. It just feels like there's like a wall blocking me from doing anything. And then the third reason that we may not eat when we're in depression is we just want to lay in our bed. It feels so comfortable. And it just feels so completely uncomfortable leaving our bed, having to go interact with people, so we just want to be away from everyone and just do nothing. One of my roommates also has depression, and when she's in depression, she overeats. So it completely depends, but if you just notice a difference in metabolism in someone who you live with or in a friend where suddenly they're eating different kinds of food or not eating at all or eating so much or binging, whichever, just a huge difference in food usually indicates a depression or a manic episode. In mania, sometimes I binge on food, sometimes I don't eat at all.
I know that you feel me, you're running, oh, making the rounds with all your fake.
Number 4, this is something that my roommates notice, that my boyfriend notices even though we're long distance, based upon the times when I wake up and text him. And my roommates have been commenting on the sleeping thing as well because they notice such a difference from usual. When you're in depression, your brain flips. So normally you're in deep sleep for 2/3 of the night and you're dreaming for 1/3 of the night. But when you're in a depression episode, your brain flips it. So instead, you're dreaming for 2/3 of the night and only getting deep sleep for 1/3 rather than 2/3 of the night. So your body feels like it needs to compensate and sleep and sleep and sleep even more. So when I'm in depression, it's impossible for me to wake up to alarms. Normally, I get 9 hours of sleep and I feel so energized, ready to start the day, sometimes even wake up a few minutes before my alarm. When I'm in depression, my body needs to sleep for 13, 15 hours, and it's literally impossible to wake up to my alarm. I will set like 7 alarms and it'll be impossible to wake up. Even if it's like 10, 12 hours, my body will not be able to wake up. Not being able to wake up to alarms is a huge sign of depression. And if you notice that one of your friends or roommates has a pretty good sleep schedule where they go to bed at a normal time, wake up in the morning, start their day, and then suddenly they're all of a sudden sleeping in way past their normal time, that's probably a sign that they either have depression or some type of sleep disorder. Sleep differences are the hugest indicators in bipolar of a mood episode, even the type of dreams that you have. If someone reports having really vivid dreams all of a sudden, like extremely vivid dreams, that's a sign they are about to go into a depression episode. Having really creepy nightmarish dreams is a sign they could be about to go manic. And then having really monotonous dreams that just feels like your normal life could be going into depression as well. Literally, my depression dreams will be like I'm checking my email, I'm writing a video script, I'm making coffee, stuff like that. But this is called hypersomnia, when you're suddenly sleeping so much. And this is why with number 1, they feel kind of sick and just exhausted all the time because their body flipped the amount of sleep they're getting, and so even when they are asleep, they're not getting restful sleep.
I couldn't stand the person inside me. I turned all the mirrors around.
Number 5, ditching plans and just not showing up and being present anymore. I think this is why depression can ruin friendships, because people begin to take it personally. When I'm in depression, I will often just not text people back. Not because I don't care about them, but because it just feels like it's so much energy to reply to someone, and I do not have the energy to think of the words or try to conceptualize my thoughts into words, and so I just give up and do not reply to people. Also, I might have plans to meet up with someone and just cancel last minute, not even tell them why. Now that I understand I'm bipolar, I will literally tell people, oh, I'm in depression right now, sorry. Sometimes I'll make a ton of plans when I'm manic, then I'll crash into depression, not follow through. When I was in really severe depression at the end of when I was in college, I would sleep through events. There would be some event going on at like 2 p.m. or like 5 p.m. and I would literally sleep through it because my sleep was so messed up. And just in general, because you have so much less energy, you're so exhausted all the time, going out, doing things with friends, you just have zero motivation to do anything because you physically feel like you have mono. The person just feels so exhausted.
I'm colder than this home. I'm meaner than my demons.
Number 6 is similar to number 5, but this is something you could notice in someone who you work with or you have a class with, and that is just not showing up to places anymore. Not coming to class, not coming to events. When I was at Pepperdine, I was pretty social and part of our campus ministry group, and there would be so many events throughout the year. And once I got into depression, I just kind of ghosted all the events, never showed up. It was because I was in depression. I also missed so many classes. It was because I was in depression. Part of this too is just being less outgoing and talkative. I think this is also a way you can ruin a lot of relationships. People can think that you're mad at them or you don't want to talk to them, and really it's just like you're in depression, you have no energy, it's so difficult to talk to people. Now I live with roommates who I'm really close friends with, so even when I'm in severe depression, I still want to talk to them. But when I was at college and we were walking around campus, I really only wanted to stick with my closest friends, and if I saw an acquaintance, I often would avoid talking to them or have a really short conversation. And it isn't because I'm mad at them, it's just because it takes so much effort and energy to think of what to say next, and that stresses me out so much that I really just don't want to talk to them. It's similar how people with social anxiety or anxiety don't want to talk to people as much because it's so extremely stressful. I just want everyone to be aware that just because someone doesn't want to talk to you, seems less into the conversation, it could be something going on with them that is not personal to you at all.
And I try to hold these secrets inside me. My mind's like a deadly disease.
Number 7, not being coherent in a conversation. The brain is so messed up in a depression episode, especially if it's lasting a long time and is severe depression, major depression episode. The brain actually begins to physically shrink and there are less neurons firing. It's just very slowed down and not working. So the way this will manifest on the outside is it will seem like we're not listening to you. So over Christmas break, I was in depression for a few days. I was having dinner with my family and I asked my sister something and she's like, I just said that 10 seconds ago, why are you not listening? And I was listening, but because I was in depression, my brain was not processing it, not remembering what was being said. There's so many memory problems that result from depression. Our brain is not processing things fast enough. We might talk slower. I remember in my lecture classes when I was in depression, my face would just be like the entire time, my face would just be like so confused and like trying so hard to listen. It's really difficult to process information and a lot of times we'll be confused with what's being said and just not understand what you're trying to communicate. People get frustrated with me sometimes when I ask them to repeat what they said. Again, people take things really personally and a lot of times in depression, our brains are broken and we're trying so hard to listen and process and participate in the conversation, but we cannot perfectly do that.
I sat alone in bed till the morning. I'm crying, they're coming for me.
Number 8, randomly crying. So I cry a lot when I'm in depression. I get so frustrated when I cannot complete basic tasks that it makes me cry. I get angry that I'm even in depression. That makes me cry. I personally try to hide when I cry when I'm in depression because I don't want people to get freaked out because I cry so intensely. And a lot of the time, I know that the reason I'm crying is pretty illogical. I'm not trying to invalidate my own emotions, but I just know when I'm in depression, it's like I'll be trying to write an essay, not able to write the essay, so I'll cry. One little thing will go wrong and it'll make me cry. It's just like you become so sensitive to everything around you. Someone can make a joke that normally I would think is hilarious, but because I'm in depression, I'm so sensitive and everything you take so sensitive and everything makes you cry. I could be having a discussion with someone and I start crying. And when it comes to roommates, I know I will just go to my room and cry sometimes, and I think sometimes my friends can tell that I was just crying, or like at church, a lot of times I will cry. I cry at church like every week regardless, but that's just because I'm like really into the service. But if you notice that someone is suddenly being more sensitive, this could be why.
I know that you're afraid, I'm gonna walk away. It's time the feeling fades. I'm bad in love. Ooh.
Number 9, becoming detached in a relationship. So I actually just wrote a blog post about emotional detachment in relationships in bipolar disorder, so I'm gonna link it up here and in the description. If you're dating someone who's bipolar or if you have bipolar, it's extremely important information. When people with bipolar go into depression, we will become distant from someone we love. I don't become distant from my friends, but I want to become distant from my boyfriend. I made a whole video about bipolar relationships that is super helpful if you have bipolar, and I explain detachment in it. But if you feel like someone is like pulling away from you more, not communicating as much, it could be because they're in detachment and they feel nothing towards you because they're in depression. For me, in depression, it just feels like I'm not even here at all and I'm just on autopilot, and so I cannot, it just feels overwhelming trying to do a relationship when I'm in depression. I feel so disconnected from the other person. I feel unwanted. I feel like they don't want to be with me. It's so weird. I don't know why it happens, but you do. You feel like you start reading things a different way and you feel like the other person doesn't care about you, doesn't want to be with you, even though you know that they do. It's so frustrating. So if you're dating someone, or it could even be a best friend, and they suddenly feel really insecure in their relationship, it could just be the depression doing that to them. In depression, you feel disconnected from yourself, so you're also gonna feel disconnected from other people, disconnected from God. It's just impossible to feel fully loved by other people and to feel loved by God when you're in depression. And in depression, the autopilot takes over, so it seems in a lot of ways like the person is fully there, but they're not. When you're bipolar, a relationship is going to feel completely different when you're in depression versus normal versus hypomanic versus manic. The relationship will always feel different. You'll constantly feel disconnected from the other person. So often you'll feel like they're a stranger to you. There's nothing that you can do about that except become more balanced on meds.
I paced around for hours on empty. I jumped at the slightest of sound.
Number 10, having a messy room, not doing chores. I personally love to clean. I love things organized. When I'm in depression though, it becomes impossible for me to clean, to do basic chores, because it feels like there are giant weights on your entire body and it's so difficult to just complete any task. And so it's really difficult. Like, I'm so slow at getting dishes done. I mean, that's like with number 2, where I don't even eat when I'm in depression because it's too much effort to make food. So it's so much effort to also do dishes. My room becomes so messy when I'm in depression. It just feels like impossible to do anything. So if you have a friend who's in depression, if you're just there with them when they're doing the dishes, when they're cleaning their room, like if you help them out with tasks and not even do the tasks for them, but are just there next to them when they're doing the tasks, that makes it so much easier. Just constantly having people around me is what I always need when I'm in depression. But if you just notice that your roommate's with someone and they're usually pretty clean, they're usually on it with doing dishes, doing tasks, doing chores, and then suddenly they're less into cleaning, that could be why.
And I've grown familiar with villains that live in my head.
Number 11, less productivity. So you guys even see this in my upload schedule. Earlier last year, so for a lot of 2016, I was off meds and I was hypomanic. And so I uploaded 3 times a week, which a lot of people don't know how much time goes into editing a video, but it takes about 20-30 hours to edit a YouTube video. So I was working 70-80 hours a week on my YouTube channel because I was more manic. A time when I was in a major depression episode was in 2015, 2016, and I just did not upload videos for about 5 or 6 months. Because my brain was so slowed down, it took so much time to do any task, so I had to quit my YouTube channel in order to focus on my coursework in college. The past few videos I've had to upload in depression, and it's so difficult. It's like pushing so hard against a boulder to get work done. It's so annoying. And also just being more easily distracted, not being able to focus. In school, I would not turn in assignments or turn in assignments late or be constantly working on things, but working at a much slower pace. So there's just less productivity, less energy. It's not anything they can control. Even if I'm constantly working when I'm in depression, it's gonna be less output, less creative than when my brain is normal.
I can see you looking for distractions. I can see you're tired of the acting. So why can't you show me? Who are you in the dark?
Number 12 is noticing subtle facial expressions. So I think a lot of people with depression fake their emotions and go into this autopilot version of their personality when they're in depression. I always try to act really happy and act like I'm myself, but then the moment I think no one's looking at me, my face will drop and go to nothing. So it's really difficult for people to notice this, but if they're around me for a long period of time, I think it's pretty obvious. Because you can't keep faking, you can't act for hours and hours and hours. Eventually the facade will go down and you'll just look kind of mad or upset or really sad or just blank face and confused and nothing. So if you notice that someone goes from super high energy to nothing, that could be that they're in depression and that they're faking this autopilot version of themselves. I think it's really difficult to notice this though, and it's why a lot of people don't see depression in other people or don't believe someone's diagnosis, don't believe someone's in depression, because the person is faking themselves so well.
Who are you in the dark? Come on and let me in, darling. All of the strangers are gone.
Number 13 is if someone cannot make decisions. When I am in depression, it's so difficult, even at a restaurant, to decide what to order. Or just anything I have to decide, it's impossible to make basic decisions, like deciding what to wear, how to do my makeup. It takes forever to decide on things. When I was in depression, I always had my friends order for me at restaurants just because it was easier. So if you're seeing that someone's thinking is just super slowed down and it just seems like they're spacing out a lot, that is depression. And it's something that still happens where I'm just more spaced out and just not fully here. And so if you have a friend who is in depression, making decisions for them, helping them pick out outfits in the morning, helping them decide what to eat. This is something that would consistently happen. I would walk into the cafeteria at my college, look at all the food options, and then leave and just not eat, because it was overwhelming and so stressful trying to decide what to eat. Depression has been described as having a giant stress response, and that's honestly what it is. It feels like everything is too much stimuli, and you can't make decisions, and the world feels like too much, so you just want to lay in your bed all day and do nothing. I hope that this was really helpful in observing depression in other people. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!